We got a bidet! Hey everybody, and welcome back to another video. In today's video, we got another movie discussion with you. Today we got The Black Phone, which is a horror movie. It's kind of like a psychological thriller slash horror movie. It is a little more adult, so it is rated R for this one. Although when we were watching the movie, we were kind of like, bits and pieces here maybe get at the R rating. So if you're kind of wondering what the age group is for this one, I would say like late teenager, early adult. But we're going to talk about the movie itself and then give our opinions on it. This is our villain here for the movie.
With spoilers.
Yes, there will be spoilers. We're going to talk about the movie pretty quick here. So click away if you don't want spoilers. We gave you enough time. So here we go. We're going to talk about the movie. So what is The Black Phone? Well, The Black Phone is a movie about this dude that portrays himself as a magician and lures kids so that he can kidnap them and then do whatever he wants with them in his basement. It's more torturous type stuff that he wants to do. It's not like sexual stuff, anything like that. It's more of violence than anything. And just playing mind games with these kids as well. We'll kind of get to that in a minute. But there's been kidnappings happening in this neighborhood. I think there was a total of 5 before our main character gets kidnapped. But basically there's a kid that gets kidnapped. And then, the neighborhood is aware of it. And then another kid gets kidnapped. And unfortunately, the neighborhood doesn't do a whole lot to try to prevent these things from happening. But as this is happening, the daughter of the film, so there is our main character is a kid, and his sister, she has this little bit of an ability where when she sleeps and dreams, she can kind of see the future, see different things that are happening in the world, so to speak. And supposedly her mother had this ability as well. And so she gets this little tip, from her dreams that something's happening. And when the police are talking to different students at the high school or middle school, maybe it was middle school for their age group, they start talking to her about things. And then we get this dynamic with her dad where we find out that they go to his work because they think maybe something's going on, because who would have told her this information about the kidnapper? And we get this character dynamic that the dad is very abusive. For a good handful of viewers, it's probably a very tough scene to watch. But what we get from this scene is that, not only is the dad violent, but he is also a very broken person himself. He is still not over the fact, I believe his wife committed suicide. Was that it?
I don't know if it was necessarily suicide or not, but what I do remember is that basically her powers were her downfall. Somehow her powers caused her to either commit suicide or follow a lead on something that wound up leading to her death.
Yeah, so now he's a single father with 2 kids, and it's really, really getting to him. Not that that's an excuse, but that's just kind of the character that we're getting from him. And so he wants his daughter to basically shut up and not talk about what's going on with her dreams and let the police do their thing. But while this is happening, another kid gets kidnapped. Um, like I said, I think there was 5 kids that were kidnapped altogether before finally our main character gets kidnapped. We are told, this dude that's doing the kidnappings, he's called the Grabber, and he drives a van and has black balloons in the van. And so, when the kid's walking home one day from school, this dude stumbles out from behind his van and kind of fakes that he dropped all of his stuff, and he's asking the kid, can you help me pick up my stuff? I'm clumsy. And the kid picks up the dude's hat and hands it to him, and he kind of peeks into the van and he goes, are those black balloons? And as soon as that happens, our main character gets kidnapped by the Grabber. And so now we're kind of into that part of the movie where, he's in the basement of the Grabber's house and he doesn't know what's going to happen. He knows that there was other kids kidnapped, but there's no other kids in this house. It's just him in this one basement area. And he notices that there is a phone on the wall. He notices also that the phone is not plugged in. But he is told by the Grabber that, the phone rings, but nobody's ever there and doesn't really understand why that phone even rings. So a little later on, we find out some other little small details. One that's a pretty big detail is that the Grabber's brother is staying at his house. He's kind of fallen on hard times a little bit, and he's staying with his brother. Why is this important? Well, it's important because when the Grabber doesn't have his brother around, he plays these games full on with the kids, where he's sadistic and violent and whatnot. But now that his brother is living with him for a little bit, he can only do things when the brother is like asleep or away from the house. Basically anything where he won't get caught. So we have that kind of dynamic where our main character is a little on the safer side as opposed to the other kids. And so what kind of develops is that, he's trying to figure out ways to get out of this house and run away from the Grabber. He notices that there's, a vent to get out of the basement. At one point, he does pull the vent piece off. But the biggest thing that's going on here is the phone rings. And when he picks up the phone, there's a voice on the other end. Mind you, again, the phone is not plugged in. So this is kind of like a magical type thing that's happening here. And basically what happens is there's a voice that's talking to him, and he kind of pieces together from things that he was told earlier in the movie. He knows who these people are. So, for instance, at the beginning of the movie, we open with a scene where they're playing baseball, and I believe he strikes the kid out or something. And the kid from the other team, which is one of the kids that gets kidnapped, walks up to him and says, "Dude, your arm is mint. Like, you have a really good arm." And so when he's on the phone, he hears the dude say, "Your arm is really mint." And so he kind of puts together that, "Are you so-and-so?" I believe his name was Bruce. And he's like, "I don't really know because I don't remember my name, but, I think I am Bruce." And he kind of starts to piece it together from his realm, the beyond, maybe is what you want to call it. And so what's happening is that these kids that were kidnapped before by the Grabber, that were murdered, are able to use this phone to talk to our main character that is currently taken by the Grabber. They're able to tell him what they learned while they were kidnapped to help him best get out and survive what's happening. For instance, there is a time where the Grabber puts food out for our character. I apologize, I don't remember his name. It'd probably be a lot more effective if I knew his name.
Finney.
Finney. That's right, Finney. It's like a Star Wars name almost. So Finney is down there in the basement and gets some food from the Grabber, and the Grabber is saying, It's okay, you can eat it. If I wanted to, drug you, I already got you here, and this area is soundproof. So, the basement's soundproof. So it's like you can eat the food, it's normal, all that good stuff. But when he leaves the door unlocked. And a previous kid that was there learned that if you go through that door and you go up the stairs, he's actually waiting right there. And I believe if I put it together, he beats them to death if they go up there like that.
I thought it was kind of like a 2-strike thing, that they don't necessarily get death that fast, but the Grabbers thing is that he likes it when the kids play naughty boy, is how they describe it. He wants the kids to be naughty and to try to escape or do things that you wouldn't want somebody you just kidnapped to do, to try to get out or tell other people or whatever, because I guess this guy gets high off of that and enjoys punishing them for doing said things. So that's why he's waiting for him upstairs, hoping that he'll try to escape.
There's like like a 2-part to it, like you said. Like the first part is them being naughty, and then that would send us into a second part of his diabolical operation, whatever. So, he entertains the thought of going up the stairs. At one point he starts to, but then he does not. He turns around and goes back. But he gets, the phone calls and they say, hey, don't go up there. This is what's going to happen. So he's kind of getting all these cues of different things that they learn. Some of the other ones are, over by the toilet. If you break into the wall, that leads into a freezer. I think one of them dug into the floor by the toilet. One of them told him how to get up to the little vent for the basement, but it really didn't do much for him. One of the things that Sarah and I were wondering when we were watching this is like, he's making all this noise. How did the dude not know? But then we remembered he said it was soundproof. So that's kind of what protects him from getting in trouble, making all this noise of, banging into things and whatnot.
One of the kids knows that the Grabber stole the kid's bike lock.
Yep.
So he wrote down the bike lock combination in the room because he's using that lock to lock the screen door upstairs.
Right, which actually leads us to one of the parts of the movie where the Grabber is upstairs and he's sitting in his spot. Like he basically to kind of set the scene of what this is going on. When he leaves the door unlocked and you see that there's a stairway going up, you don't see him at the top of the stairs. If you go to the top of the stairs and turn left into the kitchen, that's where he's sitting. So it's not like if you look up there, you see immediate danger. So if you're able to get up the stairs and you go out the door, well, the door has the bike lock that Sarah just mentioned. So he got kind of lucky that the Grabber was asleep. He was sleeping, and so
one of the kids, he got a phone call on the black phone, and they told him he was asleep.
Yeah. So Finney goes up there and he gets the door unlocked, which wakes up the Grabber. And so Finney darts off down the road. He's trying to get help, but the Grabber grabs him again and basically tells him, if you make enough noise where someone will see us, I will gut you right here and strangle you with your own intestines, kind of a thing. Like he is really trying to frighten these kids. So unfortunately, Finney gets pulled back into the basement. He is down there. One of the interesting things, like this really kind of threw me for a loop at first because I wasn't quite sure what was going on here, because you don't know that the house I think that the brother is staying in is the same house that Finney is in the basement. So they did like this shot where the brother is like sitting on the couch and then it pans downward and into the basement and then we see Finney. So what's interesting about that is that the brother is actually trying to figure out who the grabber is, not knowing it, that it's his brother. There's one scene where the cops come in and they see his, web of strings, and he's trying to explain everything, and then they see his cocaine on the table, and they're like, yeah, whatever, dude, kind of a thing. So he's trying to piece this all together, and eventually he does piece it together, which kind of leads us into the end of the movie. One thing I'll mention before we get to the end here is that the sister, she's still having these dreams of trying to figure out where her brother is. So she is actually seeing, the tree in the yard, the address on the house. She sees the address a couple of times. And she also sees her like brother pounding on the door in one of her visions trying to get out, which is where I saw the address the first time. But later on, we see one of the bullies etch it in someone's arm that she gets to notice. But she's like, she tells the cops, this is the house, go, go, go. And so they go to one of the houses. And while that's happening, the brother of the grabber is figuring out, what's going on with his brother. And he's, poking around the house. He sees the basement door and he starts to walk down there, and he opens the door and sees Finney, the boy that was missing. And he's kind of like, oh, don't worry, I'll help you, kind of a thing. And then he gets killed. He gets axed in the head by his brother, the grabber. And the grabber is really, really mad at this point. The cops do show up at the house, but when they get in the house, they notice that it's an empty basement. And it's kind of, I think there's a bunch of dirt down there or something, because they said this is where he buried the kids. So they were in the wrong house. And it turns out that the house that the cops were in actually was the house across the street from the grabber's house, where he does all his weird stuff in one house and then takes the bodies over to the house across the street. One last huge thing here is, how does he get out? How does the kid get out? Well, he takes all the different things that he learned from the people on the phone, with how I mentioned, the freezer, the hole in the floor, so on and so forth. He uses all these things to his advantage when the grabber comes down to, I assume, kill him, because he's really mad at this point of what's going on. So Finney traps the grabber in the floor that we talked about earlier, that he dug up in front of the toilet. He also learned like a little bit of a fighting style from one of his buddies that was murdered. So he's like punching the dude. We notice that when Finney punches the grabber and his mask fully comes off, because he's always wearing part of the mask on screen, whether it's the bottom, the top, or the bottom and the top. Always has a piece on. But when he finally gets punched and it falls off, he freaks out, like, uh-oh, I'm unmasked. I don't have my face anymore, kind of a thing. So he kind of freaks out. And in that little moment where he's freaking out, Finney grabs, was it a rope?
It was the cord of the phone.
The phone cord. He wraps it around the grabber's throat, and he's hearing the children that died in the past. And right when the dude says, your arm is mint, he pulls down on the thing to snap the grabber's neck, because his arm is mint, so he was able to take care of him.
I didn't even catch that he snapped his neck. I thought he just choked him out.
I thought he snapped his neck. I thought that was the implication between his arm being strong and whatnot. But
I thought they were just saying that's how he was able to punch him so hard.
I don't know. I guess that's up to interpretation. But anyways, he gets out of the house. He walks out in the front lawn, and his sister realizes that, she sent the cops to the wrong house. And so the cops come running out to go investigate the other house as well. But that's kind of I don't remember that there was anything really at the end of the movie that was significant. He goes back to school. He's fine. He's good to go. I think he's a little more popular because he was the kid that escaped and took out or
He sees the bullies finally leaving him alone because he was bullied a lot.
yeah, there is a lot of scenes of being bullied in this movie, some that are pretty violent, I will say. Um, there is a reason for it because one of the dudes that was on the phone was one of the bullies, and also, well, he was a bully. I don't remember if he was a bully to our main character Finn or Finney, but also one of Finney's friends was one of the dudes that beat up the bullies for um, bothering Finney as well. So there's that's kind of where the violence comes into play for the rated R because it is pretty bloody. Um, plus the different derogatory words that they use in the film. But
And you
that's
see somebody get axed in the head.
yes, we do. That is true. I forgot about that one. Um, but with all that being said, that is the movie. So Sarah, what were your thoughts about this movie?
I liked it quite a bit. I don't know that it was necessarily a perfect movie, but right off the bat, I knew it was a Blumhouse movie, and I really like their production. I feel like they do a really good job making kind of scary, creepy movies. I thought this was going to be a little bit more on the horror side than the suspense side going into this, and it's definitely more of like a suspense slash psychological thriller, if you will, because there's so much psychological manipulation. Like even just what you said with, leaving the door unlocked. Do I go up there? Do I try to, escape that way? Do I stay down here and try to find a different way out? And um, the first scene, or not first scene, the one scene where the dad got upset with the girl, that was pretty tough to watch. I wasn't really a fan of that. I don't know really how necessary it was for them to go quite to that level because it was kind of upsetting. But it did give you the idea that the dad really didn't want her using her powers, so she had to struggle to kind of use them in private because she still wanted to help her brother, um, and the other kids too before her brother was taken. I do like the villain. I feel like he did a pretty decent job of being kind of creepy and mysterious. Um, that one scene that's behind Jeremy in his background, that's something that we see from the preview where, the kid says basically, if you touch me, I'm going to scratch your face, and then they'll know that you got hurt. And he goes, this face? And just, I don't know, the way he did it was just creepy. Um, I liked I liked at the end how all the different pieces came together, using the rope to trip the guy that he originally used to try to get the grate down to get out the window. So he used the rope to trip the guy and the hole to make the guy fall into the hole, and then, beating him up with the phone that's been helping him the whole time. And then, he used a stake from the freezer to kind of distract the dog so that the dog didn't chase him as he went up the stairs. He really kind of put everything together to have all of the kids help him versus just the last kid helping him. So I thought that was pretty neat. They did mention that the grabber could hear the phone, but basically he refuses to acknowledge it because he doesn't. He can hear it ring, but he doesn't believe that it's real.
He doesn't hear anything on the other end of the line.
Right. So I don't know. I wouldn't say it was perfect. There were parts of it that were a little slow, and like I said, parts of it that were a little hard to watch. But overall, I thought it was a pretty good, scary kind of suspenseful type of movie. What do you think?
Yeah, I thought it was a pretty good movie. Couple of things, obviously, some points to talk about. One, when I saw the previews, I thought it was going to be a bit more scary than it was. And I thought it was interesting that they had in the film, he's very diabolical and sadistic to all these kids before our main character shows up. And the only reason why he's not getting all of these issues is because the brother's there. So like I kind of wish the brother wasn't a part of this film and we would have seen a little bit more character from this evil guy. Because don't get me wrong, he's evil. And he plays mind games and all that. But I feel like the character could have had a little bit more to him. Um, something that
He did
I,
mention that he was kind of toned down because something was going on upstairs.
yeah. So I feel like if that brother side plot wasn't there, we would have gotten maybe like the full potential of what this movie could have been. Um, or what I was hoping for it to be, just because when I noticed that he's kind of toning it down, I was like, I don't know. But another thing I wanted to say is, you know, this is a horror movie, right? And so there's a lot of bad horror movies out there, but there's also a pretty good amount of good ones. And in my opinion, what makes a good horror movie is the story. You know, some of the stories have very out there plots, but the fact that this movie, set the tone for who this guy was, and then, the phone thing, one step led to another, and then at the very end, it all came together and worked. I feel like that's what makes a good horror film. Like there is a purpose for all the different things that happen, and then it all comes together for the finale. Um, like I said, it could have been a little bit more if I think they were able to let the grabber show a little bit more of his true colors. I don't mean to sound like sadistic here on camera, but I felt like from what we hear about him, he didn't really show that. Does that make sense?
I think what you're trying to get at is that sometimes when Finney was on the phone with these other kids, the camera would show them being in the room, kind of in the way that they died or how they were tortured or something. You could see that they were kind of one of them looked like he was almost suspended from his waist from the ceiling, like kind of an arch back, and he was kind of chopped up a little bit, like it looked pretty bloody. So
Dripping blood.
maybe some sort of a flashback to maybe instead of
Yeah.
them describing I tried to do this, maybe showing a flashback of like while they're describing I tried to get out the window, but he did whatever to me, just to kind of
Yeah,
show that a little bit more of the evil.
like maybe some like quick flashbacks, so to speak.
Yeah.
Like, you don't have to sit there and let the camera sit on the kid getting chopped up for 2 minutes straight or anything like that. But like very quick, subtle shots that, like you said, show the flashback as opposed to just us being explained what happened. That could have added to his character a bit more. The reason why I say that is because, like I said, we hear that he's so evil and he's done all these crazy things, and it's like I've heard it, but the way he's interacting with Finney, he doesn't really convey that. He's definitely conveying that he's a weird dude just by the way that he's, acting and his mannerisms, but
Yeah.
he's not really showing that he's this grotesque, horrible person that's chopping people up. So I feel like that kind of pulled away from him a little too much. And I wish we could have actually seen, who he was, his true colors, so to speak. Because to be honest, I felt he was pretty wimpy in this movie. I didn't really see him as what everybody else was saying, if that makes sense. Because
I think part of what alluded to that too, at least for me, was when they showed shots of him waiting at the top of the stairs. For whatever reason, he always had his shirt undone, so you could see his bare belly hanging out and whatnot. And he didn't look like he was super buff, which is fine. You don't have to be super buff to be a kidnapper. But he had a little bit of a belly on him. He didn't really look like somebody who was super threatening. And it almost was one of those like he would have been more threatening if he kept his shirt on, because with his shirt off, he just seemed like a normal dude.
I don't know if I would
don't-
say that. I felt like he looked fairly muscular, in my opinion. He didn't have a six pack, but I felt like he was
looked
fairly
pretty
muscular.
average, I guess, is what I'm getting at. He didn't really look like he didn't look menacing. He just looked like a dude taking a nap.
Yeah, the mask is what's really supposed to like convey the menacing piece of him. Because like I
Did
said,
like the mask. It was good.
how like I mentioned, he seemed a little wimpy compared to what we're told about him. Like he full on shows that when his mask is taken off. That's exactly what he turns into, is a complete wimp. And really, I think if any of the kids would have figured that out, they could have gotten out no problem, you know? Um, but I would say overall, uh, I would want to watch this movie again just because of the different things that I picked up from listening to other people talk, and also just kind of reflecting myself on the movie. Um, I would give it another rewatch. Like we saw it, at the drive-in, and I kind of look forward to it coming out on 4K or streaming service, whatever, just so that we can watch it again. Maybe with some more friends, just to uh, have a little more fun with it. But it was a great movie. It was good. I would recommend seeing it if you like horror movies, anyways. It is one of the more tasteful horror movies, if that's how you want to describe it, compared to some of the others. It's not just mindless, grotesque and jump scares. It actually has a purpose and a solid story to tell, and that's what makes a good horror movie. Would you recommend it?
I would, yeah. And I would also see it again, I think, yeah.
I don't think it's going to happen, but I would almost want an extended cut where maybe they do show a little bit more of him. But uh, yeah, good movie. So if you enjoyed this type of movie or type of video, not movie, because we're not doing movies yet. If you enjoyed this type of video, make sure to turn on your notifications. That way you are notified when more of these videos drop. We tend to see movies quite often now that, movies are coming out. So hopefully we can do some more of these in the future. I enjoyed it. So talking about the movies that we see. So if you enjoy our opinions, make sure to, like I said, turn your notifications. Please subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Drop a like if you like this video, and drop us a comment letting us know if you saw The Black Phone, if you enjoyed it. Do you enjoy horror movies in general? What are some of your favorites? And then, as always, everybody, thank you for watching. We'll see you next time.